Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. I want to thank all of our sponsors. Thank you so much for being with us, and all of our new listeners. We're all over the planet, it seems like. But you can find us on the radio at iecradio.media, and where we are Fox News affiliates. You may also find us on television, 182 Charter, as well as syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. Continue sending those emails. Really make my day. Appreciate you doing that. I have a very special friend with me. He's been on the show several years. His name is Alan Mendenhall. And Alan, it's so good to be with you after the election. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that our last program held up pretty well. When we made our election predictions, we were spot on about the results. I posted our episode on social media and had kind of a cantankerous person write some comments about how wrong we were going to be and how Harris was going to win and how the Madison Square Garden rally was going to flip everything in her direction. And boy, were we right, and was that person wrong?
Well, I wonder what they think about this particular person. What do you think about, I'm talking to you, person. So what do you think about not only the Electoral College, but the popular vote as well?
Popular vote, I know. And what's so interesting is the number of people who still, to this day, will not admit that they vote for Trump. And Trump still overwhelmingly wins in the landslide. There really is in America, a silent majority. The old silent majority phrase really is true. Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation is the president. He has a coffee mug that says the silent majority, but he crosses out the word silent. So it's just the majority. I've got that coffee mug, and I'm drinking out of it this weekend.
That's awesome. So I think, because this has been a disappointment in past elections is churchgoers just don't vote as much, But I think what Kamala said about you're at the wrong rally.
Oh, right.
I think that woke some folks up.
I think so too. And the Democratic Party has just drifted so far to the left. When you are advocating transgender bathrooms for men to use the restroom with 7-year-old girls, you've just gone too far. To have men competing in women's sports, these are just radical, ridiculous proposals. And normal, ordinary people across this country have no patience for that kind of lunacy. So they spoke up and they cast their ballots. Even the Amish were voting in Pennsylvania. I saw this one meme and it was hilarious. It was like watching the Amish go to the vote polls is like watching the trees in Lord of the Rings. Oh, I just love that line.
Well, I want to thank that community. And I'm going to tell you, I've said this for years, the Amish are the smartest people on earth. I mean, they know what makes the world go around. I'm talking literally from food to getting by in the world. And they're not poor folks either. Oh,
they make great furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Great
Absolutely. There are some heaters they also manufacture. One of my stepfathers actually bought one time. And I'm going to tell you what, that thing would really throw the heat out there.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah. So they got a lot of good things going for them. But several other things I think happened. I think people they got out in huge numbers. I think also the big number, and I'm one of them, we actually voted early this time. This is the first time ever in my lifetime that I didn't go to the polls that voting day. But there was an overwhelming amount of people, conservatives, who actually voted early.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. The whole phrase "too big to rig" is accurate. And as we discussed on the last program, or the last time I was on at least, Trump's scrutiny of the voting system and all the attention he brought to it meant that it was a lot harder for people to cheat this time. Mm-hmm. You had an enormous number of poll workers around the polls here in Alabama that I saw, and I have many friends who are attorneys who volunteered to monitor polls who had never done anything like that before. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the integrity of the voting system was much more protected. And if you look at the number of votes, total votes that Barack Obama got, and then and then he got again. And then if you look at Hillary Clinton, and then you look at Biden, and it skyrockets up, and then it goes back down again for Harris.
No,
So, those numbers just don't make sense.
No, they don't. I want to ask you a question about Biden. Do you think secretly Biden voted for Trump? And the reason I'm asking that is there's this little fashion statement. It's an unwritten fashion statement.
Where you wear the colors of your party.
Yeah, so yeah. Jill wears a red
Jill
dress.
Wears the red pantsuit. I know. And I saw some friend posted a little meme on Twitter that said, in retrospect, there were signs. And it was Jill Biden walking out of the polls, and you know that everybody was talking about how Biden, both Jill and Joe, despised Harris and were furious about what happened over the summer when he was dethroned, as it were, from running for president. And I find it hard to imagine he wouldn't be upset. I mean, how could you not be upset? But the question is, were they so upset that they voted a different way? Who knows?
I think they did.
Excited about voting for Harris if they did? Maybe not. Maybe they felt Schadenfreude. I don't know.
Uh-huh. How do you think the meeting went between Biden and Trump when they met just a little bit ago?
Oh, it looked as though it went fine, and that Biden was actually smiling more than he's smiled in the last 4 years, that he was actually kind of enjoying himself. Mm-hmm. But you never know with Biden because he's not all there. Right. And he could have been senile at any given moment and we wouldn't really know. But this move over the weekend to authorize Ukraine to bomb deep into Russian territory suggests that if not Biden, one of his political operatives is trying to sabotage Trump's presidency from the get-go, trying to set up Trump for failure. But I don't think that's going to work. I think everybody is going to realize that this move happened under the Biden administration, and I think Trump's administration can go in and fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. I think they will too.
I think people are overestimating American support for Ukraine in this conflict. I think most Americans believe that we ought to not be involved, that it's not really our conflict, and that we've got our own problems to worry about. Why are we over there spending all this money when we're over 34 or 35 trillion dollars in debt here? We've got other things to do.
Yeah, and then I keep bringing this up, but the hurricane that went through North Carolina devastated so many families, and they do good to get any money, which has to be paid back, by the way. They're not giving it to any of the families. So are the people that they're giving the money to overseas, are they required to pay any of that back, I'm wondering?
Oh, I don't know what conditions are placed on those, but I am very concerned to hear from FEMA whistleblowers about passing over houses with Trump signs. The directive that you don't go assist these people if they have Trump signs. How awful is that? I can't imagine Donald Trump saying and directing his FEMA officers to skip over houses if they had a Harris sign. It wouldn't happen. He loves America too much, and he loves Americans. And as he himself said, you can't be president of America if you do not love Americans.
Mm-hmm. And I think people should be seeing that. I think he's going to be the president for everybody.
That was the referendum that we saw in the election. People were seeing these things, and people were voting. I mean, Trump made inroads in the Hispanic community. He made inroads in the Black community. He's making the Republican Party into a more diverse party in terms of ethnicity and background. And he appeals to working class voters in a way that Democrats don't. And Democrats purported to be the party of the workers for many, many decades. And they've lost the workers because, again, they are promoting things like transgender ideology that really most ordinary Americans who roll up their sleeves every day and go into the office to do a day's work don't care about. It's weird to them. That's a strange thing. It's a luxury belief, as they say.
Let me ask your thoughts on this, because first of all, you don't mess with a master marketer. You just don't do that. I mean, Trump got it going on, you know that. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things happened, and he took advantage of it. So he goes to work. Kamala said she'd worked at McDonald's. We know that's a fabrication. But anyway, so he goes and he starts passing out burgers. And by the way, pays for everything. Everybody who went that day got everything free while he was there. So he dresses up and he's putting the fries in there. He's at the drive-through. I mean, what do you think that did? Then I want to ask you another question. Not only that, but the garbage bag deal.
So glad you brought up both of those. Yeah, those were semiotic gestures that were brilliant. And I say semiotic in the sense that he was conveying signs and symbols to the people that were very appealing. And both the garbage truck vest and the McDonald's apron are very American icons. They're very symbolic of America. Somebody that gets this is like a performer like Lana Del Rey. You know, she's appealing to working class men in her music videos, and she'll have guys on a Harley or guys with a cut-off jean jacket and guys with a tattoo. She knows how to appeal to the working class, and Trump is brilliant in that respect. But he's also, in terms of semiotics, tapping into a very old way of messaging. And I think it has to do with that sense of noblesse oblige, which is that although he is a spokesperson for the working class, he is also acknowledging that I am not of the working class myself. He doesn't do that silly thing that Waltz did where he goes and puts on a hoodie or puts on camo and looks inauthentic and doesn't look as though he is being himself. He put on his tie and he put on the garbage vest over it. He put on his shirt and tie. He put on the McDonald's apron over it. That is a way of showing that I am who I am. I acknowledge it, but I am coming into your world to be with you and to be like you and to gesture towards your needs and wants. And I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending to be you, because I don't have the same experience, but I will speak for you and I will speak with you. And that is the messaging that, whether he has a coherent notion, is conveyed. You know, whether he is fully aware that that's what he's doing semiotically, he is, as you say, a great marketer. He sees it as a great branding exercise, a great PR tool. And it's brilliant. It's genius.
Well, they just handed it over to him. Did they not think he would do something like that?
No, it's amazing.
I mean, who are their advisors?
I have several friends who are attorneys who went to vote wearing grocery bags. They wore grocery bags like with the hole cut out, and they voted like that because they're. I love it. I mean, and you know, who else would inspire such things?
Well, you know, something else, and Trump brought this up the last time he ran for office, and this was pertaining to people who do, you know, they work for the city, you know, picking up garbage and what have you. Do you know that a lot of those wind up millionaires because they know how to manage their money? You've got a good stable. It's a good job to be a trash collector.
And you don't have to go into debt getting a college degree before you get the job. You know, that's what a lot of young people, I mean, everybody acts as if college is going to be a great accelerator for everyone's career. Well, if everybody goes to college, and of course it can't be an accelerator, then it just means that to distinguish yourself, you'd have to go get a master's degree, and it just doesn't work like that. And I think many people are missing out, and they're getting behind because they opt for college when in fact they don't need it for what they want to do. And also in college, they're unlearning things. The Intercollegiate Studies Institute, long ago in the late 2000s, would do these civics exams, and they found that students entering into college knew more about basic government and policy and civics and history than did students graduating from college. So they actually had learning loss in college. What they were learning in college, I don't know, but it wasn't related to those subjects. And I also think that in particular in business schools, the principle that there's nothing you can learn in a business school that you wouldn't learn better out there on the job holds. I think that is true for most business schools at most places. Is there a place for research on business? Absolutely. People can conduct research on business, and faculty need to be pursuing different lines of inquiry related to any type of business research. But not all students are going to college to research. They don't want that. They want to get a good job. They want to make a good living. And I think I'd say 90% of students who major in business are probably wasting their time. They would learn so much more if they just went out and got jobs in business and learned how to do it.
Well, there's nothing being an apprentice for a company is on the job training. There is no better way you can learn than that. I mean, because I went to college and I took accounting courses. I'm not even doing that. I'm doing nothing like that. So there's this guy who believed in me 20 years ago. And so he said, I want you to host a talk show. And I'm going, yeah, right. I'll forget my name as soon as the camera comes in and focuses in on me. And he said, no, you'll be a natural. You can do it. And I said, I didn't go to college for that. And he said, you don't have to. He said, the best people on there are the ones that I just throw out there and they just do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it once just for last, but let's record it just in case I royally mess it up and I can't remember my name. There's just something about the camera coming in, and it actually works. But my dad had one of those old Bell and Howell cameras. And so I've seen video or movie of me, 8mm, with me coming in, mother bringing me in from the hospital, and dad with me a baby. By the way, they're toting me like a football, so I guess that explains what happened to me. But anyway, it was a fun thing to do. It had nothing to do with what I went to school for. And I wanted to mention this. People used to make fun of the lunchroom lady. It started on Saturday Night Live, making fun of the lunchroom lady. I have an aunt. I don't know that she even finished high school, but she worked as a lunchroom lady at Oxford High School for years. Well, guess what? She's better off than most people in my family, because working for the city or the county, whatever, and you work with a school system, it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or you're a lunchroom lady or you're a janitor. You can start drawing retirement, and it's a nice retirement just by working there for 10 years in this county. I don't know about everywhere else.
Yeah,
but 10 years.
People that hold jobs like those which you just described are pretty good at managing their money as well. I know a lot of people who are in the professional world who are dentists and who are lawyers in particular. These are two examples that I just happen to be thinking of right now, who have no money. They're my age, they're in their 40s, and they have no money because they went into debt and they paid off student loans after however many years, but then they had this notion that I want to live like a dentist or I want to live like a doctor. And they tried to live that life before they had that money, and they never got out of debt, and they still struggle with money. Whereas somebody that gets a job earlier in their career, works hard, lives within his or her means, is way better off in his or her mid-40s than these professionals who are living some fantasy life where they think, they're holding themselves up to these standards of doctors or lawyers they've seen on TV, and they're ruining themselves in the process.
That's right, because basically what you're doing is you're making payments on interest.
Right.
And I know you've talked about this several times. Kids don't know they can actually make more of a house payment than what is recommended. If they tell you $700, try to move it up to $750. It's amazing how much interest you're shaving off of that.
That is true. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. It wasn't about this subject of personal finance, but it mentioned in the article that if you are a millennial, which I'm a millennial, believe it or not, you can actually be old and be a millennial now. We use that term.
You're a young little guy.
But if you are a millennial and over 5 years you are spending $1,500 on some expense, maybe it's daycare, maybe it's something else, but over that 5 years, that $1,500 is costing you $1 million in savings over a lifetime if you were to take that $1,500 and put it in a passive index fund that tracks the S&P 500. So all you have to do is eliminate $1,500 of expenses every month. If you were to put it just for 5 years, into a passive index fund, at the end of your life, that amount will be worth $1 million. And that's incredible that people are not saving. And I'm guilty of this too. I have a lot of expenses that I shouldn't have. And I could definitely be doing more with less. But there are people that are in much worse shape than I am as well. So, it's a question of priorities and a question of prudence.
Absolutely. Like my aunt I just mentioned. So my uncle, blood uncle, died several years ago. Well, she didn't have to worry about it. She never remarried. She said, he was my man, like that. Mm-hmm. But see, she wound up she's not paying rent. A lot of her friends are paying rent, and she has no house payment, no rent payment, no nothing because she paid the house off. She was smart enough. She went on ahead and took the laughs, people making fun, well, guess who's laughing now?
Yeah. And, say what you will about him politically. I know people dislike him, but as a person, Jimmy Carter was very modest in his living and lived in the same small house that he lived in before he was president in Plains, Georgia, and never bought a mega mansion, never did anything like that, lived within his means. And I can respect that type of humility.
I can too.
I can really respect that.
Oh, yeah. My grandparents were all the same way. Yeah. They were happy with what they had. And right. My grandmother my grandmother had one restroom, and I would say, just one? You just have one restroom? And she would say, I don't want to spend all of my time cleaning 2 and 3 restrooms.
Say, how many do you need? How many do you need to go?
She said, it's just me and your granddaddy. Why do we need more than? And I said, well, when we all come. And she said, it always works out. There's always plenty of time for everybody to go to the restroom. So she was right. Yeah. I used to laugh at that. Well, she was absolutely right.
Yeah, that is true.
Absolutely. Wow. So many things. I think we're being humanized again after this election. Yeah. So many things you think you have to do. I've mentioned my son several times. So his in-laws are wonderful, wonderful people, but they didn't want them living in a mobile home. And so what happens, he was going to college, he buys a mobile home, but he's renting it out to some of the other students, and they were making the payment, plus he was putting the money in the bank. Well, when he gets married, then he said, let's live in the mobile home for another couple of years, and then we'll save up enough money, and we'll build a town or have a townhouse. They live close to the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I'm glad they did that now. I mean, they are like debt-free.
That's awesome.
All because he did that. And I remember his mother-in-law, wonderful lady, but I remember her saying, I don't want my grandkids being born in a trailer. That's all she would say. And I said, well, let's just let them decide what they want to do. Well, now my son is considered the financial genius of the family.
Yeah, that's right. My brother is in wealth management in Atlanta, and he can't discuss his clients. He can't reveal who his clients are, but he says that wealth is more about saving and keeping the money you have than it is about making the money that you don't have. And he said, you wouldn't believe some of my clients that are multimillionaires, what they did for a living. You wouldn't even believe it. They just saved well. And they may have had basic jobs that you wouldn't think anything about, but then they inherited family land or something like that. And they became wealthy because they didn't spend money, and they weren't showy about what they did have. They were grateful for what they had and didn't think it should go to waste. They didn't want to waste it. They weren't profligate spenders. They were careful savers.
A few years ago, I was working for a company, one of the biggest cosmetic companies in the world. And so they wanted me, actually gave me an opportunity to go to New York, live there. And a lot of money, but now when you compare comparison pricing, your rent is so much higher there. You buy a house, you can't afford to buy a house there. You got to be gussied up. Now it's got to be like Fifth Avenue dress, attire, stuff like that. You got to spend a lot of money on your clothes, but that's not the number one thing I thought about. My number one thing was raising my teenage son in New York City.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so my friends were saying, you are crazy not to take this job. Are you crazy? And it was like, no, I don't think so. Because he's got a mind of his own. I raised him to have a mind of his own. And I said, because I wanted him to be able to think for himself. That's important. And I'm thinking, he's got a mind of his own. I raised him in New York. What's going to happen?
Right.
because so many of my friends move to a big city like that, a big, big, huge city. They wind up spending so much money on therapy for their own self and their families. A lot of their money went to therapy and just different things you have to think about. So I wound up being so much better off to stay put. And
that's right.
so mentally challenging, because I noticed that a lot of the people that I met up there was something not quite right about them. They were getting into alcohol, they were doing drugs, they were doing all this stuff just so they would have to take pills to sleep, then they would have to take other pills to wake up.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't want that life. I didn't want to be on a hamster wheel. So you just got to find out not what other people say. Think of my aunt Ann, lunchroom lady, pretty darn well off right now. Because she did something everybody else made fun of. You've got an announcement. So let's go ahead and cut to a commercial break.
Okay.
We're going to be right back in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring. But the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319, and let's think of the possibilities.
At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm back. And so is Alan Mendenhall. Thank you so much for watching Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. And that's what we're out there giving you, the truth about everything. I'm very happy camper about the election. And I think a whole lot of folks like you and me, Alan. So, you've got an announcement. I'm so proud.
I'm excited, Donna. I'll be leaving Troy, which is sad. I've enjoyed my time here and appreciated everybody I've worked with, to join the Heritage Foundation in May at the end of the academic year. So technically, I'm a visiting fellow right now, so I have a little bit of an on-ramp as well as an off-ramp. And I'll be joining the Heritage Foundation full-time in May, and that's going to be really exciting. I'll be based here in Alabama and commuting to and from D.C. as needed, definitely a few days every month, but be working with policy in the Southeast region and doing a lot of other things for Heritage. That'll be very exciting.
Let's talk about the Heritage Foundation. What's it about?
Well, it's been around for a while. Its mission is to promote public policies based on free enterprise, limited government, individual freedom, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. It's been one of the leading conservative think tanks for my whole life, but much longer. I think Ed Feulner was an excellent president, and he stepped down, and then Jim DeMint became president, and then Kay James was president for a while, and then Ed Feulner came back in for an interim period, and now Kevin Roberts is president. So I'm very excited to work with Kevin Roberts. I think he's a great guy. I think he is very sober on foreign policy, takes more kind of Pat Buchanan line to foreign policy, which is where I generally fall. And I'm just excited. I know Heritage is fundraising. I think it had its record fundraising year last year, and is set to do incredibly well again this year. It's got a $100 million annual budget, and it's doing great work, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
And I know you'll do very well. You mentioned the word freedom, and I wanted to talk to you about what a realtor told me. So before the election, she said houses just weren't selling. She said, I think the market they were nervous. People didn't know what's going to happen if Kamala Harris is president of the United States versus what happens if Donald Trump is president. And this is in Anderson, South Carolina. Awesome. Her name is Lindsay Cole, by the way. If you live in that area, you need to get her for your realtor. She's just awesome. She knows what she's doing. So anyway, she said, they're just, people are just waiting. They want to wait until after the election. And she's a conservative. You want a conservative, by the way, for a realtor, I would say, she's going to look out for you. So she said, Donna, it was the day after it was like, bang. Now people are wanting to buy houses again. And so if you'll go to realtor.com, realtor.com, you'll see what I'm talking about, because homes that have been on the market for now a few weeks, you're seeing pending and you're seeing under contract just in the past week. I mean, it's an explosion of people now that feel free to buy a home. I mean, people are not going to buy when they feel like they're in bondage, are they?
Well, that's right. And one of the sort of byproducts of the rising interest rates, the mortgage rates were over 7%, which, if you were living in the 1980s, you might think that sounds good, but for me, I mean, when I bought my first house, I think I locked in an interest rate somewhere just a little over 3%. So if there are people like me who bought a house and locked in low mortgage rates, well, they might be reluctant to sell because they know that whatever they have to buy out there is going to be an interest rate over 7%, and that's over time that's going to cost you a lot of money. So there's a lower inventory that hurts with the housing market. Just in general, the issues with inflation. We've talked about this many times over the years. Inflation makes things cost more. It costs more to build. It costs more to get lumber and whatever else you need to build houses. All the different constituent elements of a home. So there's been construction slowdown, and housing prices had gotten pretty high as it was. So there was probably a little bit of a bubble, and that makes it hard to determine what price exactly people are willing to buy at if you're selling a home. And then there are always impacts when it comes to unemployment and the fear of recession. There was during the Biden administration some debate over whether we were in a recession, but obviously if you are in a recession and buyers are going to be reticent to make major financial commitments like buying a home. That's just, it's a risk. So there are a number of factors. Also, as we've talked about in the past, young people who in previous generations would have been new home buyers are putting off selling homes because of the rising costs of higher education. They have to take out student loans, so they're paying off student loans rather than buying houses. Whereas, a generation ago, 2 generations ago, you could actually go to work and pay your tuition. Well, that's absurd now. There's no way you can, unless you get academic scholarship or athletic scholarship or something like that, or just major scholarships. You can't afford to pay at least the sticker price. Nobody could work their way through college anymore if they're paying the sticker price. This is going to reverse course. We see colleges beginning to merge and close, and many colleges are struggling financially. And I think we're going to continue to see this occur as we have fewer young people at 18 years old that are going to be going to college. And you can always try to enroll people who want to go back to college, who are older, want to go back to college and get a degree, but there are only so many of those people. So I think we saw that international enrollment went up last year, but how long term is that, where universities are just now vying for however many students from India and China they can get? That just doesn't seem like it's a long term viable model. And now that we're learning there are national security issues with some of the students that we're bringing in from China, and we're having to close Confucius Institutes all across the country because they've been spying on intellectual property and universities in general and reporting back to the Chinese Communist Party about what they're learning here in American universities. I think that we're going to see a dramatic change in the higher education landscape over the next decade, and a lot of institutions that may even be household names may not be there anymore in a decade.
I feel like that's going to happen, and the interest in technical schools has really accelerated.
It has, yeah. A lot of public regional universities try to offer skills-based technical education,
Absolutely.
But why would somebody choose to go to a public regional university to get that when they could go for almost nothing at a community college and get the exact same education?
What are your thoughts about interest rates once President Trump takes office? Do you think it's going to go up or down?
I think they're going to go down. I think the Federal Reserve is already signaling that it's ready to start slashing rates. I think what will be interesting to see whether Jerome Powell keeps his job. There's already sort of a sign that he is going to try to stand up to Trump, and Trump technically can't make him leave his job, but he's going to sure try. I have a feeling. So we'll see how that standoff plays out.
We're talking earlier in the program, the first part of the program, how Trump just resonates with everybody else. I thought it was pretty telling when he was on the plane with Elon Musk and several other of the guys. They're, they're the high rollers. They were on a plane eating McDonald's.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's
So
right.
that's
RFK
something we need.
Jr. is going to be ahead of health, and he was scarfing down some McDonald's too. But he's a ripped guy. There are all those pictures of him on Twitter with his shirt off, and he's got his pecs and everything. I don't think that one Big Mac or whatever it was he had is going to throw off his training. He seems to pay very close attention to his personal health.
Well, something, you can't live off of salads either. You can't
that's
go.
True. No, you cannot.
You got to have a balance, and I think a Big Mac's okay every once in a while.
You're making me hungry. It's 10.
I'm hungry now. Let's stop the show and go eat.
I'm actually going to lunch with somebody as soon as we get off this call, and now I'm kind of like checking my watch.
Yeah, well, hurry, I'm hungry. So, okay, just a few minutes left of this segment. So I wanted to ask your thoughts about when President Trump comes into office.
Mm-hmm.
What can we expect from world leaders? Are they glad Trump's coming in as president, in your opinion?
Well, it depends on what you mean by glad. I think Viktor Orban, for example.
Are they relieved?
Glad. I think some of them, so I'm projecting. It's hard for me to know what a world leader thinks. But right. I suspect, and this is probably a good thing for the United States, I suspect some of them are not happy because they don't know what to expect from a Donald Trump presidency. And that's good for us. It may be bad or frustrating for them, but that's good for us. Mm-hmm. I think having an unpredictable president is good. And Trump is unpredictable in certain ways and predictably unpredictable in other ways. What I mean by that is we know what he's going to do, and he said what he's going to do, but we don't know what that will mean for America's place in the world because no one's done this stuff. They call we've heard the term the uniparty, which is that, Republicans and Democrats really in the establishment form are indistinguishable. They're going to just do the same old, which is get elected, be beholden to their lobby corps, signal to their European counterparts, do what they have to do with NATO. Trump's not that guy. He is not, by any measure, an establishment person. And so we know that he is going to do anti-establishment things. We know that he's probably going to institute tariffs here and there, but we don't know what that will mean yet because we don't know where it's going to happen or how it's going to happen or why it might happen. We don't know what the triggering event will be. And that adds an element of unpredictability to the predictability in terms of policy, if that makes sense. We know that these political appointments that he's making, whether it's in the executive office, like his White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, we know what he thinks and what he's going to do, but we don't know what that will mean in terms of how the American landscape gets shaped. We know generally what Elise Stefanik, for example, the nominee for ambassador to the UN. We sort of know what she thinks on Israel. We know what Mike Huckabee thinks on Israel, but we don't know what that will mean for the Israel-Palestinian conflict. We just don't know. So I think that kind of uncertainty is a great thing for the president, but it would make other world leaders nervous and anxious, I would imagine.
Well, the first time around, Rocket Man, North Korean dictator out there, he was scared to death of Trump. I mean, he didn't know what to expect out of him.
And I don't know what to expect out of that situation where we've got North Korean troops fighting for Russia now. And what, I don't really know what Trump's going to do in Russia. I couldn't tell you. If you were to ask me right now to take an exam and list the 5 points that Trump is going to rely on when he approaches this Russia-Ukraine conflict, I couldn't list them. I don't know what he's going to do. I have no idea. It's fascinating.
I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing.
I really do. Because this is what you do. Your adversaries, you want to keep them guessing.
You want to keep them guessing, and I do think that Trump is wanting to put America's interests first. He loves this country, and that to me is the right priority. We don't need to be fighting other people's wars. We don't need to be policing the world. We don't have the money to do that. We're 35 trillion plus in debt. We can't afford to go police the world anymore. And these European countries that want to see action, well, they want to be protected. They're going to have to step it up. If they want security, they can't rely on the United States for it anymore. Many of them are promoting values that are antithetical to ours. Why would we support them? They should be on their own. If they have a problem, they need to look to their own security first. And if they can't do it on their own, then maybe they need to stick a sock in their mouth and stop running it. And and not depend on the United States of America to go defend them. We have plenty of our own issues to work on, and we need to work on those before we start trying to fix other countries.
I think so too. And let's talk about financially. And no doubt it's going to be turned. The finances, it's going to be turned around, no doubt. How fast do you think? And what's the first thing he will tackle, in your opinion? Will it be interest rates? What will it be?
Well, I think it's going to be the administrative state. He is going to take an axe to the administrative state. This new agency Doge that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are going to head, I hope it has teeth, because it is absolutely necessary. We just learned that the Pentagon hasn't been able to manage its budget, hasn't been able to, to even estimate how much it's been spending. It's unbelievable. That's out of control. We need Doge to come in there and ensure that we have sound accounting, and we need to get rid of waste. I was talking to somebody on the phone this morning. I won't say who it was. I was driving in, but he's a state employee in Alabama, and he was telling me about all the people he has known over the years working from one agency to the other who were going to the office and basically playing solitaire on their phone all day and getting paid to do it. And that just is unnecessary. I feel bad. These people need jobs, but the more we have government bureaucracies, the less we're going to have private industry in this state. We need to stop looking at government as our first solution. We need to cut spending, because the one thing is we always talk about cutting taxes. Well, that's great. Cutting taxes is great, but you have to cut spending too. Mm-hmm. If you don't cut spending, then cutting taxes isn't really that helpful. So you got to cut spending, and you need to run on a lean government, and this will ensure a more robust private sector. We need to create more jobs. We need to be enticing to out-of-state companies that want to come in here and do business because mm-hmm. they like our low property taxes. They want to hire our workers, and they want to enjoy the immense benefits that we have to offer in the state. We have all this land. We have all this agriculture. We have a great community, and it's a pretty low cost of living here in Alabama. It's a great place for companies to relocate. And frankly, I believe that the Trump victory is going to signal to corporate America that you want to be in these red states where people have moral values, because mm-hmm. when people are self-governing, they don't need to be policed by government.
Right.
When something goes wrong, you don't want to be living in a city where people are going to be burning down shops and looting and pillaging and doing all that. You want to be where something goes wrong and people are going to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Look at what happened in North Carolina after the hurricane. A bunch of good people came together and helped each other and pulled each other out. You compare that to other regions of the country when there's been a natural disaster, and people looted and they rioted and there was lawlessness. There's a major distinction, and we need to ensure that before any economic principles apply, we are a virtuous, moral, ethical people. Only then does the market flourish. The market flourishes in places where people don't breach contracts because they hold their word, that people respect property rights, where there's a high level of trust among businesses because people expect businesses to operate in good faith and not to breach contracts, not to violate property rights. That's when you have the great conditions necessary for businesses to prosper. And we have that in Alabama. And I hope that businesses start realizing that, and we really begin to to boost our economy. I think it's an exciting time to be here. I think Alabama's going to be in a great place in 10, 20 years. We will be so much better than we have been over the last few decades, and I'm excited to be here for it.
Well, we couldn't keep following that same path we've been following for the past 4 years, that's for sure. I'm a huge advocate for fair tax.
Yes, you are.
Do you feel Trump is flirting with that idea? And I want to bring up this one. This is no tax on Social Security. What does that mean to you? Folks are taking Social Security payments.
Well, to the first question, I don't know that he has used the term fair tax. I don't know whether he's talked about that or not. But he's the first presidential candidate in my lifetime that I can think of. Maybe Ron Paul did this or somebody like that. But where Trump actually put it on the table that maybe we should toy with getting rid of the federal income tax as a trade-off for tariffs, because in general, when you do institute tariffs, you cause rising prices. So if I put a tariff on steel, well, then anybody importing steel is going to be hit with that tariff. Mm-hmm. And in general, that may be beneficial to the steel industry, but it's going to cause steel prices to go up. And so any industry relying on steel, whether it's to build roads or construction or buildings, or whatever you build with steel, obviously I'm not a big construction, knowledgeable construction guy, those are going to cause prices to go up. So Trump's saying, well, what if we offset these things by getting rid of the federal income tax? And that would, and people get excited about that. So it's Trump acknowledging that my tariff regime is directed at punishing companies that are doing business with our enemies. For example, does it make sense from a national security perspective for us to be doing as much business as we do with China? Yeah, it may be great financially to get the cheap goods and services over there in China, and you can't blame companies for wanting to get cheaper goods and services. That's just in the nature of business.
Sure.
But is there a reason why we ought to incentivize them to look other places? Yes, it's in our comparative advantage to get those goods and services cheaper from other places, but maybe we have allies, our potential allies, who are not spying on us, who are not cheating on the trade deal. I mean, when there's no reciprocity whatsoever, and people are essentially, screwing you over, excuse my language, but screwing you over on the trade deal, then you don't have a friendly trade relationship with that person. It's not it's not the type of commercial exchange that generates feelings of trust in the long term. You might get short-term benefits, but you need to find better trading partners. And I think that will happen. And maybe it's a result of tariffs, which, again, I'm not generally a big tariff fan, but I can understand where Trump's coming from. He doesn't want these jobs going to other places. He wants to keep it here at home. And he doesn't want us, making our enemies richer and trading with them at the expense of our national security, where we're having our intellectual property stolen, or we're having our weapons information, or whatever it is, being revealed to people who want to hurt us every day. They want to hurt us. And that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. It does me too. But I've just done a lot of research on fair tax or flat tax. And this way, everybody's paying. And I've flashed, there's a guy named Chuck Bailey. He and his wife are advocates for fair tax. And the first time I heard them talk about it, I was drinking some cola or water or something. I almost choked when he said this. He said, "You know something? Even drug dealers and prostitutes will be paying." And I went, "You're right. They would be paying, because think about people who work under the table. Okay, they're not paying taxes. They're here in the country. They're working under the table. Whatever, they're being paid under the table. So, in other words, they're paying no taxes, and we are.
Yeah.
It's not balancing. So this whole thing about fair tax, to me, would be the way to turn it around. And I think you could do it in record time. People coming to visit, on vacation, whatever, they're paying taxes too. And when you analyze it, we're paying a whole lot more, a bigger percentage than we're aware of. Because when you consider it's taking out of our checks, it's also taking out, if you're a business owner, oh boy, you dread getting your taxes done. And all of those things are happening. That means we don't have time to grow. We don't have the money to grow our businesses like we would like to. You're being punished for doing things the right way.
Yeah, and that didn't come up so much in this election as it did in the last election. In the last election, people made a lot of to do about Trump's taxes. Remember, the Democrats made it a lot, and he said, "Look, I am. You should actually think that this is a good thing. That I am using my knowledge to work the system. I know how the system works, and you need to appreciate the intelligence I have for that. What I want to do is change the system so that people like me can't do what I'm doing." And that's kind of what he said, and it's interesting. I've always been kind of on the fence about the national sales tax, or the fair tax, and a single flat sales tax rate on goods and services. But I think it would be certainly better than what we have now. And as put on the table, abolishing the federal income tax, that's exciting. You'd get rid of corporate tax and payroll taxes, like you said, Social Security taxes. I would love to get rid of the state taxes and even capital gains taxes. I think you'd incentivize much more investment. We talked earlier about savings and investment, and it'd be interesting to see. I like I said, I've been on the fence on it. But if it eliminates all those other things that we just talked about, great. But as I also mentioned earlier, when you start eliminating taxes, you also have to eliminate spending. And to me, the spending is so out of control. When you think about
you would not run a business that way. I mean, okay, how long would I be in business with this? Okay, with my talk show, how long would I be in business if I spent more than I was bringing in?
Yeah, you wouldn't be in business long at all. You can only operate and so long. Yeah.
That's why a businessman needs to be running this country.
Yeah, I agree. And we're getting several of them in this administration.
Yeah, I'm tickled. When I really liked Trump the first time, I knew that he was, a worker and all that kind of stuff. But when he really won me over before he even ran for president was the skating rink in New York City. They'd thrown all kinds of money at it. I mean, just throwing it at it, and nothing was being accomplished. So Trump said, well, I'll do it for like a fraction of whatever everybody else was saying they would do it. And I'll also have it done in like record time. And he did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. It really is. That's huge. There's so many things like that. There's just so many things like that. Those are just a couple examples. But this will be an interesting thing, because for me, he knows he's got one term. So anything he does, it's going to have to be done in the first year. And it will be done in the first few weeks. You'll see more done
with him. It will be, yes,
ever done. But he has got to be training up J.D. Vance to be his successor, I think.
And I think he will.
I think he will too. And it could be, like you look at the LDP in Japan or some other country where there's been a political party with dominance for a long period of time. It's possible. I don't know. I'm not predicting this, but it's possible that the Republicans are about to enjoy that type of long-term prosperity in terms of ruling dominance, just because the Democratic Party is in shambles.
I think so. You're going to have to go. Man, I can't believe it. Time flies by. Oh my goodness, we're on a roll too. Oh my goodness. So, Alan, it's so good to be with you. What would you like to say to the folks before we go?
Well, I just like to say that we are at the beginning of a new era, and I'm excited to live during this time. I think we're going to see very positive change, and we should all be grateful for that. And I'm excited, and I hope everyone else is too.
Well, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it. I really am. But thank you so much. I always love having you as a guest on the show. Hang around a little bit because I need to get you set up for December as well.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate that. And so does Alan, who's been with us a long time. But thank you so much for watching. And continue sending emails, by the way, Donna@donnasedge.com. And by the way, if you would like for me to ask Alan a set of questions next month, go ahead and get those sent, okay? Donna@donnasedge.com. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.